You are my enemy.
Gods, what have I become?
Welcome to hell.
Happy Halloween. Let's talk about the fear of God. The most formative early years of my life were spent growing up in a religious household. Don't worry, it was just Christianity. It's not like we were that strict about it. There was this ever-present feeling that I must reach God's expectations for me. Now, there are many questionable philosophies throughout the Christian worldview, but generally, it's about being a good person. I like to think that all religions strive to preach positive morals, right? Right? When my religious beliefs had reached their absolute maximum was also when I first played a game called God of War Not 2018. I went to church as much as I could and studied all the basic instructions before leaving Earth. Except for all the weird Old Testament sacrificing stuff, I don't even know where to get a lamb. I went to GameStop as much as I could and studied all the video game news, reviews, and previews out there on the internet. Except for all that weird Japan-phobic stuff at the time. I don't even know why God Hand got a 4 out of 10. Wait, it got a 3? God of War's decadent dance of violence was a blast to play. In the real world, I was just a little kid who could barely stand up to my older brother. But in God of War, I wielded divine chaos between my hands, taking down gargantuan monstrosities in the most brutal ways possible with just a few taps from my thumbs. I also killed many innocent male and female NPCs as Kratos for absolutely no reason. Shockingly, none of that was what kickstarted the fear of God. It wasn't Kratos having sex out of wedlock either. It was actually because the game revolved around Greek mythology, an opposing religion. I mean, Christianity clearly won long before David Jaffe invented Kratos, but still. After playing as Kratos for a while, trying to accomplish his mission in the favor of gods that were not my own, I got scared. Is playing God of War a form of heresy? Am I going to hell for playing this? Or would it be Hades? The underworld? My little kid brain couldn't comprehend what it was at the time, but this war of morals going on in my head gave me quite the realistic depiction of a panic attack. Lucky me. I returned God of War Not 2018 to GameStop and haven't finished it to this day. However, just a few years later, I did complete God of War 3 without a single moral quarrel. Hooray! I've matured. My fear of God evolved as I became more skeptical of his role in our world. Would he really care if I pretended to be a Greek god? It's not like those gods are real anyway. So the next video game that gave me a morality-induced panic attack was Spec Ops: The Line. Thanks a lot, Blockbuster. As they were bleeding out on their last legs, Blockbuster allowed customers to pay a monthly fee to rent any one game at a time all month long. And boy, did I abuse that system. My Call of Duty coded kid brain immediately picked up Spec Ops: The Line, purely based on an 8 out of 10 score from IGN, which boasted an excellent story. Why would they give this badass military shooter such a lame subtitle like The Line? Nobody knows. But what I do know is that IGN saying this game had an excellent story became the understatement of the year. The scariest thing to happen to anyone is having Spec Ops: The Line spoiled for you. So I'll do my best to talk around any of the specifics, but if you haven't played it before and want to go in completely blind, I would highly recommend skipping to this time code. The death of thousands of NPCs never stopped me from my ultimate goal of reaching the credits before, but Spec Ops: The Line was different. I killed and I killed and I killed, but then the game forced me to make decisions that blurred the lines between right and wrong, good and bad, heaven and hell. Wait. Oh my god. I needed to kill characters I didn't want to kill. I needed to use weapons of mass destruction that some would say aren't entirely ethical. I needed to choose myself over others to reach the game's credits. Spec Ops: The Line is designed to play like any typical third-person cover shooter of the time. Fans of third-person shooters should be quite comfortable with pulling the trigger to solve all their problems. Therefore, all of the narrative choices made throughout the game are cleverly designed in the same way, using the same controls as killing any other enemy. It is my duty to cover shoot, and it is my duty to make the right choices so I'm always getting the good ending. Fallout 3, good karma run. Far Cry 3, saved my friends. Infamous, hero first. And then the villain run so I can earn the extra trophies. I know I'm a good person because I know I make good choices in video games. Presenting these choices with the same button interactions used in combat further immerses the player while hiding less obvious answers from them. There were less cruel options I didn't even know I had, and the game brought me straight to hell for that. A blazing spiral inferno, the likes of which would make all Dantes jealous. Blue skies are replaced with pillowing pools of blood and brimstone, soaking the desert dunes divorced from their horizon line and stripped of any earthly qualities. This wasn't hell. This was far deeper than that. I wasn't too young for Call of Duty, but I was too young for this. My actions throughout Spec Ops' story made me feel progressively more and more uneasy. Despite doing the exact same standard shooting I had done countless times before in practically every other AAA game from that generation. There was something about beginning this chapter bearing witness to a towering obelisk of damnation, before proceeding to murder more people with each step drawing me closer to the altar that made me stop. I don't know what I just saw, but I knew it was evil, and I think I've become a part of that evil. I froze in front of the blazing pause screen, wondering if I should move on. Am I complicit in all this? There's only one way to stop these horrendous acts of violence, and that would be to turn the game off. Am I signing away my soul by choosing to finish this game? It was late at night, witching hour, when my TV opened a portal to hell. Whether it was my own decision, or my thumbs being puppeteered by Beelzebub himself, I unpaused the game and finished our story. I don't regret a thing. Replaying video games is hard to manage in 2024 while also keeping up with the industry. New games often take priority because it's hard for me to justify spending any free time diving into an experience I've already done before. Despite everything I experienced with Spec Ops: The Line, I have to make a confession. I still enjoy playing Call of Duty. No matter how bad, broken, or morally bankrupt some of the campaigns can be, the series' fundamental shooting mechanics are always strong. The controls are tight, the run and gun nature keeps the blood pumping, and the responsiveness makes every shot rewarding while limiting any potential frustrations. It's simple. Call of Duty makes it fun to kill Nazis. So I decided to replay arguably the darkest Call of Duty still to this day, World at War. Why? 'Cause it's fun? My memories of World at War had faded like a Polaroid from the 1940s. I hadn't played it since it was released in 2008, which might as well be the 1940s in gaming history. World at War made a reputation for itself as the one set in the grim Pacific Theater, the one that introduced the world to Nazi zombies, the one with all the cool gore in it. I remember enjoying it when I was young, just like every Call of Duty I played when I was way too young for phone calls or duties, but that's kind of it. I do remember the campaign being split in half, hopping players between a Russian soldier fighting the Germans and an American soldier fighting the Japanese. Replaying it now, I realize that the subtext within the Russian campaign is interesting enough to earn its own video someday. And if World at War was solely the Russian missions expanded upon, it could have been one of the best Call of Duty campaigns. But let's talk about that American campaign. Opening with a Japanese soldier burrowing a lit cigar into a fellow American's face before painting the wall red with one brutally swift slice to his throat was a choice. Implementing the act of limbs ripping and tearing off bodies in the heat of battle was a choice. Animating all kinds of long, drawn-out deaths of horrified enemy soldiers was a choice. It's obvious why this is remembered as the dark and gritty Call of Duty. These extra touches do elevate the brutal atmosphere, and the Russian campaign utilizes this darker tone in thought-provoking ways. However, the ways in which the American campaign implements these gritty attributes contorts itself into a sinister tonal nightmare. The Pacific Theater and the European Theater are not the same. Yet despite being in the Pacific, you still perform the formulaic D-Day mission that every World War II game is required to have by law. But this time there's palm trees. I jumped from cover to cover trying to overtake the tide of the Japanese army until I was given a phone to call in artillery strikes. Treyarch spends the entire campaign convincing players how aggressive the Japanese fought, how overwhelmed the Americans were in the Pacific, how abundant and crazy Japanese soldiers were compared to the Nazis during the Russian missions. World at War floods the beaches with Japanese soldiers that would rather run out in the open lunging towards the player with their bayonets than preserve their own life. And then it gives the player full power of the US military-industrial complex in the palm of their hands. This, my friends, was a choice. Disembodied arms and legs fly across the sky with every blast of artillery deployed. Flamethrowers burn the flesh off their skins as they wallow on the ground, slowly fading away. A mission which begins encouraging the player to clear enemy trenches with a flamethrower is given the title Burn 'Em Out. If a mission doesn't begin with a flamethrower, then the player likely starts with a Browning M1919 heavy machine gun. A gun so powerful, it can rip right through a Japanese soldier's legs who then tries to crawl away while the blood trail he's painting strictly follows. Diabolically decimating the Japanese army with these weapons just wasn't enough. Flamethrowers and heavy machine guns are even used when escorting a tank through the crowded jungles. All of this was a choice. 10-year-old me playing this for the first time would tell you it was sick nasty. Playing this today as a 26-year-old, it just makes me sick. Incorporating graphic violence is not the issue. I play plenty of violent games all the time, from horror games to shooters, you name it. No, I start to feel queasy playing the American campaign when I run down a hill just to get ambushed by an onslaught of Japanese soldiers and react by burning them out, then watching their bodies turn crisp and covered in soot, screaming for help. But their ghoulish wails get drowned out by the sounds of patriotic war anthems valiantly declaring my victory. The tonal whiplash of mixing this soundtrack with the violence, then combining those with the countless artistic decisions prioritizing the one-man army power fantasy that only Call of Duty knows best, made me vomit. And worst of all, it was fun to do. The phenomenal fundamentals of Call of Duty feel so good to play no matter what war crimes I'm committing. Spec Ops: The Line conjures fear by criticizing you for committing war crimes. But what's even more scary is when World at War praises you for committing them. But we are the Americans. We're the good guys, right? At least the ends justify the means, right? I'm a good person. I would never hurt people like this. But now I know that's a lie. Because I've been hurting people like this since I was 10 years old. Left to believe I was the good guy for setting fire to countless Japanese soldiers. I finally realized I was never the good guy. I only roleplayed as the good guy, feeling good about myself because I chose the path that was clearly labeled for me as the good choice. Ignoring all the terrible things I'd done in games because they weren't labeled good or bad, but my main objective. Because why would I ever do something that was bad? I was too comfortable pretending to be the good guy to ever truly question what I was doing. The things I do in video games. I'm evil. I've always been evil. I needlessly burned people. I murdered innocent lives. And worst of all, I had sex out of wedlock.